The Kelverii are by far the most militant and aggressive force in the galaxy. They are a hammer which cracks open defensive lines and scatters the lesser empires to the four quadrants. They are an unstoppable force from which the galaxy quakes. Then one day they were. Another brush war had broken out, a blip on the radar of the galaxy at large, as there hardly was a cycle where the Kelverii were not seizing what they could. The largest of the other powers had formed a coalition, but this was merely a stopgap measure. They could hold the line in 99 of 100 battles and still slowly ceded territory before the onslaught. Still, the coalition was not defeated enough to forego what reconnaissance they could. They knew that every new conflict was a testing ground to the Kelverii. A single stealth vessel could learn what their enemy had up their sleeve for the next campaign against the coalition, perhaps months in advance. So, one such vessel was dispatched to observe and report on this new front in the Kelverii expansion. The captain knew very well that all he was likely to find was the remnants of another people toiling under the boot of the Kelverii. It had become so routine as to be utterly mundane. Even his family, if they were still alive, toiled in a mine or a processing plant around some distant star. He closed his eyes, rubbing his hands along the ridges of his temples. He considered the dull, rhythmic speech of his helmsman as he counted down till real space transition only absently. As he reached 10, the captain pressed a button on his chair and spoke bluntly. "All hands prepare for translation. May he protect us." The captain closed his eyes for a moment and felt the shift ripple around him, before being snapped back to reality as alarms sounded all around him. His eyes locked on the viewscreen in horror as he saw the Kelverii battlecruiser hovering so perilously close to the ship that he felt he could reach out and touch it. Evasive action. Get us away from that thing. Red alert. Report, are our stealth systems operational? There was a long moment of terror as the ship veered away and the bridge crew worked in a frenzy before finally stations checked in. Yes, sir. Stealth systems are operational. There is no sign we were detected. Good. Passive sensors only report other activity in the system. Another more uncharacteristic pause began and the officer monitoring the sensor sweep stammered after the captain focused his attention on him. "Yes, sir, passive scan report is inconclusive, but I need an answer, Lieutenant. There would appear to be hundreds of capital contacts. Escort vessels are indiscernible at this range, but may he preserve us." The captain muttered absently to himself before shaking his head. This must be some kind of staging ground for new campaign against the coalition. "We have to." "Sir, there's more." The young lieutenant shook his head. "I don't understand the readings very well, but it appears the Armada is still engaged in battle towards the core of the system." The captain leaned back in his chair, contemplating the insanity of fighting the Kelverii openly on such a scale. Display system topography on the hologrid. Before him the crisp lines of the hologrid sprang to life, giving him a spatial representation of the system. A series of asteroid belts slowly came into view, as well as a series of gas giants, but something about the picture seemed off with previous expectations of the system. The second and fourth planets, which had been noted as likely solid semi-habitable worlds, were gone. In their place were two sparse streaks of asteroids in the expected rotations. There was only one reasonable answer. This species, whoever they were, had brought down the final option of the Kelverii when they realize they cannot take a system, total annihilation. Overlay known and suspected Kelverii contacts. Small red dots appeared within the projection, a few scattered around the system at large, but an imperceptibly dense mass gathered around the third planet. If they were going to get a clearer picture of the situation, they were going to have to enter the system and pre-form their passive sweeps at much closer ranges. The risk of an active scan was far too great. It was as if the whole of the Kelverii fleet was at their gates. "Helm, bring us within the remnants of the fourth planet." "Aye, sir, moving into position. Arrival estimated in 30 septs. Good. Maintain high alert until we are within the asteroid belt, then move to ready." The captain returned his attention to the hologrid before him. His eyes fluttered occasionally as periodic updates showed even more of the vessels converging on the third planet. Whatever this species had done, they certainly had gotten the Kelveriai's attention. And his, to be fair. To last against such an overwhelming naval power was unheard of. Still, it was happening before his very eyes. If only. The communications officer dragged his attention back to reality. So we are receiving something. I think we're being hailed, but not over subspace frequencies. Some form of laser transmission. The captain absently nodded a moment, considering the commentary before standing suddenly, his eyes wide and the fur on his neck standing on edge. A laser. We've been detected. Give me a target vector. Was it the Kelveriai? I don't think so, sir. The transmission appears to be from the planet itself as best as I can tell. Are you able to translate it? I think so, sir. It's some form of video compressed into the data stream. The computer is deciphering it and putting the audio through the translation matrix. All right, play at my terminal once it's finished. Time dragged to a standstill as the captain watched his monitor blankly. Obviously, this species was advanced enough to both hold off the Kelveriai and detect the coalition stealth ships. Impressive, but also terrifying. Still, this low-tech transmission was so strange to be juxtaposed against the other information available to him. His monitor flared to life, displaying a few cut frames of the aliens which he assumed to be from the planet. Pale, and almost sickly looking despite the obvious musculature of the subject's jaw. Its mouth was covered with patchy fur, but its face and the top of its head was bald. Its eyes were sunken and red. The captain couldn't discern much more from the poorly decompressed slideshow of half-broken images. Is the translation matrix able to pull anything from the audio? No, sir. I think. Whatever they are trying to say, it's completely outside the standard codecs. Very well, record the transmission in the logs. We'll have to assume for now that they were able to discern us as an outside force. Perhaps they are trying to ask for our aid. He leaned back in his chair, running a fingertip along his console as he considered the situation. We can't help these people, not openly. I need another option. Are we able to transmit such a signal without the risk of detection? It's possible, sir. It will take some time. The problem will be the targeting. Their transmission was close range compared to the Armada. They didn't have to guess when to transmit to avoid detection. We would. Millimeter, very well. Make the preparations. We will make ready for exfil and leave the system after transmission. We can't risk waiting for a reply. Alert all stations. The process dragged on in near silence, the captain keeping his eyes fixed on the stream of sensor data filling his logs. There was obviously some form of hyper-advanced defense system in place on the planet, but he hadn't seen a single inkling of offensive capability. That was what he had to do. How much data will we be able to transmit? Our array is sufficiently powerful, and we can compress in what I presume will be a compatible system for the aliens that perhaps 20 therons will be achievable, Captain. Prepare a packet, non-classified weapons and propulsion technology, standard codecs, and coalition historical records. Transmit and begin exfil when ready. Aye, sir. The captain watched silently as his crew completed the task at hand. The transmission was sent, and they were away. It was a small pittance, but perhaps they had given these people a chance that so many never had. The hammer of the galaxy seemed to have finally met the anvil, and he had to alert the coalition. He could only hope that they would hold out. May he protect you all.